Hi everyone. In this video tutorial we're going to recap everything that we did in Monday's class. So we're going to save our tile set out of Photoshop, and we're going to learn how to import it into GameMaker correctly and then use it in GameMaker to paint and add artwork, add tiles into our level. So recapping what we did, but also just reinforcing it. Doing it several times really helps you to remember and understand the basic concepts. So you can see I'm in Photoshop here. I have my tile set that I've created, and we do a save as, and in our tiles folder we will save it into a tiles folder and we just make it a PNG file. Okay, you can see I've already got one saved there. Alright, we're going to do something a little different as well. In addition to the tile set we just saved, I'm going to make a dark version of this tile set. This is a really useful thing to do. We can use it in GameMaker. Let's say we want to create an interior space and we want to have a wall behind the player that looks like it's in the distance, perhaps a little bit. Then we can create a darker version of our tiles that we can use behind the player as an interior wall, and we can use these brighter tiles as the floor and the objects that the player will stand on or collide with. You'll see what this will become kind of more obvious once we get into GameMaker, but to create a darker version is quite easy. I'm just going to add a levels adjustment layer here in the adjustments layer panel. So if I just click the levels, it adds it to my layer stack here, and you can see the properties window, and I'm just going to slide this slider to the left, and this is just reducing the amount of white or bright colors or pixels in the image. So you just slide it to the left until the image is quite dark, like I want it to be quite dark. That looks good to me, and I'm happy with that. So I'm going to save this now as a PNG. So I'll go save as, direct it to my tiles folder, set save as type to PNG. I've already created one here, but I'm just going to save over it. First tile set dark, and we always go for large size in the PNG format options. Okay, so that's a nice and quick way to get a variant of our tiles, and super useful. So let's switch over to GameMaker now and have a look at how to use these tiles. So I'm looking at my room 1, and if your room 1 isn't open, go to your resources panel, expand the rooms, and just double click room 1. Another useful button is this button here in the room editor, center fit. That will just fit the entire room to this screen here. You might if you've gone off screen like this, you can just hit this button here to bring it all back. So looking over to the left now in our layers panel for this room, I haven't created any tiles layers yet. In the last class we did create them and started painting, but let's go through that process again. We'll also go through the process of importing our tiles into GameMaker and setting up a tile set. Let's do that first. Let's bring in our tiles, and we do that by creating a sprite. Okay, all artwork that we bring into GameMaker must come into GameMaker as a sprite here. I've actually already got that first one, so I'll just delete it. Just delete all my tile sets. Okay, so this is where we'll be starting. So I'm going to right click on sprites and choose create sprite, and that brings me up a create sprite dialog. The first step when creating anything in GameMaker is to give it a name. So I'm going to call this SPR underscore tiles light. Okay, and in the image area, click import, and this is where we can browse for our tile set image. So I'll select my light tiles, and now they appear here. So that's all we need to do in terms of the sprite. We create the sprite, give it a name, import the correct image, and we're done. We can close this window. It doesn't. You can leave it open. You can close it. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to close it to keep the space simple. We can see our sprite there. Let's go ahead and import our second tileset sprite. So I'll right click on sprites again, create sprite, and just do the same process. SPR underscore tiles dark, import the image. This time I'll select my dark tiles. Click open. Now we're good to go with the sprites. And I can see both of those down there. I'll just collapse the sprites resources there. And now we'll create a tile set. So it's a two-step process. We import the sprite image, and then we create tile sets. So I'll right click on tile sets, create tile set, and in the tile sets dialogues here, we'll give it a name. So I'll go, this is tiles underscore light, and then in the sprite area, click where it says no sprite, and then you just want to browse and find the correct sprite to add. So this is my light one. It then appears here in the tile set properties, and the last thing we need to do is set the tile width and tile height to 32 over here in the tile properties. If you can't see this, sometimes it might be collapsed. There's a little button here, and again, if it's off screen, you need to click and hold with your middle mouse or hold the space bar to pan in this area so you can see everything you need. Once we type 32 by 32 in there, you can see it's the grid looks correct here on this image, so that's a good visual check. Leave all these other numbers the same. So give it a name, associate the correct sprite, and then in the properties change the width and the height, tile height here to 32. Brilliant. We can just close this down, and let's create our second tile set. Create tile set, so right clicking on tile sets, create tile set, name tiles dark, and then add our second tile set image. Set width and height to 32, and that looks good. So that's done, and you can see both our tile sets there in our tile sets resource. Okay, let's go back to our room now and look at how we can use these. So I'll click back on room 1 tab. Again, if this tab is closed, open up your rooms resource, double click the icon for room 1, and it will bring it back. Okay, let's look over here to the left hand side to our layers area, and we need to create special tile layers to do tile painting. To do that, look at the bottom of the layers panel and you can see the create new tile layer button. Go ahead and click that, and it creates a new tile layer. Let's rename this layer. You can do that by right clicking on it, rename layer, or hitting the F2 button. Tiles, let's call these light. When we have created a tile layer and select it, on the right hand side now we have another room editor window with a tiles area here, and this is where we can select the tile set that we want to use on this layer. If we click this menu, we get a pop-out window here which shows the tile sets that we currently have, and you can see the two that we just made. I'm going to choose tiles light, which now appears here. I'm going to zoom in a bit on my screen so I can see this top corner, and let's now paint some tiles. So I can click a tile from this tiles palette here and just click and drag in my level to start painting them. And the goal here for the tiles light layer is to paint over the dark blue blocks here, these walls and floors, and cover them all up. Okay, so that's fairly easy to understand, and we've got a variety of tiles here that we can use to do that. You can see I've got these 3 tiles which work together. I can just click and drag to paint, select different tiles to place them. I could make different patterns if I like, doing this kind of thing. And yeah, as I said, your goal is to paint over all of the blue blocks. So that's reasonably easy to understand, and you should be able to go through and paint out all of the blue blocks in this level using your light tiles. So what can we use the dark tiles for? Well, we need to create a new tiles layer for our dark tiles. Remember, you can only have 1 tile set per layer. Okay, in tiles light, we have our light tile set. Let's create a new tile set then by clicking the create new tile layer, and we'll rename this one tiles dark. Now I want these tiles to appear to be beneath or behind the player. So in that case I need to arrange the order of the layers so that this tiles layer is below the player. So I can click and drag the tile layer and drag it down and drop it so that it's in between the player, in this instance's layer, or just beneath the player. Okay, so that's important. Now here on the right hand side, make sure the tile layer is selected so that you can see this menu, and we'll add our dark tiles to this layer. And now I can do something like this. I'm going to add some dark tiles here. Okay. Now my player character is grey, so he sort of blends into it a little bit, but the idea is that this would look like an interior wall, but is behind the player, so we're in some kind of interior space. Okay, and I think that works quite well. I could maybe add a few more. And the player can sort of come out from this space and then see the background as well. You don't need to cover up the entire level with the dark tiles. You might want to have it so that the player can see beyond the dark tiles to the background layer, which is the colored gradient. Let's have a quick look at how this plays. I'm just going to hit my run button. Full screen, Alt Enter, press X. And now you can see I can walk back and forth here, and those dark tiles are like an interior wall. If they were the same brightness as the foreground, it would look strange. We wouldn't know which tiles we could walk on and which wouldn't. So having a dark version kind of clearly sort of indicates that those are not tiles that we can stand on. Okay, they are in the background. If you can recall my little castle demo, I use this technique for the rear walls of the castle. Okay, just going to hit Alt Enter, close that down. Okay, so that's really the goal for today, people, is for you to finish tiling this practice level, painting over all of the blue blocks, and then trying this technique, creating a darker version of your tiles to create some interior spaces within your level. So I might do something like this. You could create new custom tiles that are dark to do this. You don't have to just have the same tiles as your foreground. But there's lots of it adds variety and richness to your level. Might just add some down here and some here like this. So it looks like we can run into that space. And I go to my tiles light layer, and it's nice just being able to switch back and forth between these two layers to construct this level. Okay, that's the lesson. I hope you can follow along with this okay. Good luck.